Dear Bishop, dear Rector Dubinsky, dear faculty of the University, dear former fellows of the Nanovic Institute for European Studies, dear students, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, I have a few prepared sentences here, but I decided not to read them. First of all, what a wonderful world. My thanks to such a beautiful choir. It is one of the greatest honors of my life to be here with you today. I first came to the Catholic University of Lublin in 2004, and I was moved and amazed by all that your great university, your faculty, and your students represent. In particular, at a time of your centennial, I recognize the tremendous courage, the tremendous integrity of your founders and faculty and students who stood up to German occupation, who stood up to communism, and defended the idea of the independent Catholic University. I can have no greater respect than I have for everything that you accomplished. I also have no greater gratitude than for the ability of our two universities, yours and the University of Notre Dame, to work together to maintain the idea of the Catholic University. And I am deeply moved by the opportunity that we have as persons living in the 21st century to present an alternative to the mores and values of a secular society. An alternative in particular that helps young people to emerge in the world as leaders and help us all to maintain what is great and wonderful about our world. And now I will read a short version of some of my prepared remarks. We are fortunate to live at a time when modern Catholic universities, like Notre Dame and your university, are the equals of the best secular universities in the world. Thanks to our world-class scholars in the sciences, social sciences, theology, humanities, and many other fields, we are able to prepare a rising generation of young people, of good young people, to confront the challenges of a world beset by innumerable crises. Crises like poverty, war, the displacement of populations, and ecological disaster. But as I will suggest in this lecture, we are not only the equals of the best secular universities, but due to our identity as Catholic institutions, we have a distinct advantage over our secular peers. To quote your extraordinary, long-time faculty colleague, St. John Paul II, this advantage is our capacity to, and here I quote, unite two orders of reality that are too often placed in opposition, John Paul II says, to unite the search for truth and the certainty of already knowing the fount of truth. End quote. Today, this twofold mission is more important than ever. We live at a time which scholars have called the era of post-truth. In the words of the philosopher Lee McIntyre, post-truth is a rejection of the idea that some things are true, irrespective of how we feel about them. In a climate of post-truth, what is accepted as fact is now trumped by our feelings about the world, a world that we prefer, not the world as it is. Thus, people treat the findings of experts, especially our colleagues in the natural sciences, they treat these findings selectively. They choose the truth when it supports their preferences, and they dismiss it and call it fake news when it does not support their preferences. Post-truth is not a new phenomenon. When I was young, many Americans rejected the overwhelming scientific evidence that showed that smoking causes cancer. Many Americans. They no longer reject this scientific truth. Yet today, the global reach of social media, the commercialization of human activity, and a new wave of populist politics in Western democracies and the United States have made the allure of post-truth more seductive than ever. To explore this point today, I shall focus on the challenge faced by all universities, both secular and religious, in countering one of the most conspicuous examples of post-truth thinking. This example is the rejection of the scientific consensus about the existence, the causes, and the dangers of global climate change. In the October 2018 report of the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, a consortium of 1,300 of the world's greatest scientists came to four sobering conclusions. First, the scientists affirmed that the evidence for global warming is unequivocal. Second, the scientists stated that there is more than a 95% probability that human activities are the primary cause of this situation. Third, they emphasized the breadth and depth of these dangers, including vast impairments to people's health, the growing frequency and intensity of natural disasters. We are experiencing this now in the United States. And the extinction of plant and animal life. These scientists, 1,300, also emphasized the profoundly destabilizing social impact of climate change, as we now see in the mass migration of peoples from the devastated countries in the south to the north. Finally, the panel made a dire prediction. Unless we take drastic steps now, we have only 12 years before these threats to our well-being become irreversible. 12 years. In raising the subject of climate change, I do not propose today to say what should be done to address these dangers. I'm not a scientist, I am not a policymaker. I want to emphasize instead, I want to emphasize that reasonable people can disagree about questions of policy. Instead, in exploring the distinctive mission of the Catholic University, I want to address what people believe about climate change and how we, as Catholic educators, can devise convincing arguments to correct their views and to correct politicians' views when they are mistaken. First, what do people believe? I will focus only on American citizens. Clearly, my compatriots have conflicted views about the findings of climate science. On the one hand, a recently published Gallup survey shows that 2/3 of Americans now agree that global warming is both a fact and a direct result of human activity. This is a good development, and it's new. On the other hand, less than half of those surveyed Americans think that climate change will have a serious impact during their lifetimes. Predictably, American public opinion is also sharply divided along political lines, whereas only 4% of Democrats think the seriousness of global warming is exaggerated. More than 2/3 of Republicans think it is exaggerated. Similarly, while 9 out of 10 Democrats say that global warming is caused by human activity, only 1/3 of Republicans agree. Indeed, fewer than half of Republicans say that scientists agree that global warming is occurring. Yet, it is an indisputable fact. Here we come back to fact and truth, right? Scientific fact. It is an indisputable scientific fact that the overwhelming majority of scientists across the world agree about this danger. Second, what can both secular and religious universities do to correct these uninformed views? At first glance, the answer seems straightforward. Since the function of the modern academy is to pursue the truth, we have a responsibility to teach our students what we know to be true and what we know to be fact. Fortunately, scientific studies have confirmed the direct correlation between education and climate change awareness. They have also confirmed the importance of fact-based communications. Fortunately, the modern university specializes in both of these functions, education and communications. Nonetheless, the challenge of changing minds in a post-truth era is more daunting than one might expect. In the United States, even many educated and reasonable people still deny the existence of the scientific consensus. Yet if confirming evidence is growing every day, how could one deny it? For that matter, given the immediate threat to human existence, why should so many Americans not take seriously the urgency of confronting this threat? Psychologists have long puzzled over this kind of counterintuitive thinking. One of the causes they have identified is known as motivational reasoning. According to this theory, people are motivated to adhere to a position when it confirms their pre-existing beliefs and reject it when it contradicts them. This disposition is particularly acute in the intensely polarized conditions of American democracy, where climate change skeptics have become even more stubbornly committed to their mistaken views. Psychologists also point to another factor, which they call confirmational bias. According to this theory, people will look for evidence that confirms their beliefs in cognitively dissonant circumstances and reject disconfirming evidence. A notable expression of this bias is the inclination to question scientists' motives. When researchers at the Pew Research Institute presented survey participants in 2016 with a variety of factors that influence scientists' activities and findings, only 1/3 of the people who responded included the best available evidence among their responses. This is a strange, striking, and disturbing finding, since we as educators take it for granted that our university scientists will always base their agreements on the best available evidence. Here at Cool and at my home in Notre Dame. So here I return to the challenge of changing minds. If these biases are so pervasive, is there any chance of correcting the mistaken views of those who reject scientific truth? My answer is that Catholic universities have a unique advantage in responding to this challenge. Like their secular peers, Catholic universities can continue to provide doubters with scientific evidence. But, and this is what excites me about Catholic education, but they have an additional opportunity and advantage. When addressing religious believers, people with religious faith, they can invoke the words of your colleague, St. John Paul II, about the certainty of the fount of truth. The certainty of the fount of truth. In this case, they can emphasize to the doubters, an obligation that would exist even if the evidence for global climate change were lacking. This obligation stems from God's call to humanity to be good stewards of His creation. For an application of the certainty of the fount of truth to our times, we need only turn to Pope Francis's recent encyclical letter, Laudato Si. This letter provides a powerful message about the Catholic University's twofold truth-telling mission. On one level, Pope Francis's encyclical is a straightforward endorsement of the scientific consensus about all forms of environmental threats and their human causes. Hence, Pope Francis in Laudato Si deplores the fact that we human beings have plundered the earth's resources, wiped out entire species, and undermined our delicate ecosystem. Our appetite, the Pope says, for fossil fuels and our cavalier use of our life-giving resources have led to an unparalleled concentration of greenhouse gases. Among its many consequences, our short-sighted behavior has devastated the lives of the world's poorest people. And these were the people that Jesus Christ loved, the poor. However, there is a telling difference between Francis's arguments in Laudato Si and the findings of scientists, such as those on the UN panel, or the findings of scientists at any great secular university. Whereas the UN's experts and our secular colleagues are limited to the pursuit of scientific truth, Francis emphasizes a deeper truth: man's relationship with God. Thus, he attributes our misguided actions to a false anthropology that has led us in this secular age to put ourselves and not God at the center of the universe. God, Francis writes, did not intend for us to engage in what he calls the unbridled exploitation of nature. Quite the opposite. By virtue of the fact that he created the earth before he created us, we are obliged to treat the earth in a manner that is, and these are Pope Francis's words, caring, protecting, overseeing, and preserving. Will this perspective be sufficient to persuade climate change skeptics of our call to be good stewards of God's creation? These are difficult times for optimists. Still, the modern Catholic University represents a powerful source of hope. As educators, we are called to teach our students about the world as it really is, and then to use our Catholic faith to persuade them, our students, to tend to the earth's well-being as one of their most pressing obligations. Thank you.